In the year 2247, humanity had finally breached the boundaries of its solar system and ventured into the vast expanse of interstellar space. Among the many wonders they encountered was a civilization so advanced that it defied comprehension, a race known as the Zyrathians, whose empire spanned hundreds of star systems. The Zyrathians were renowned for their technological prowess, but even more captivating was their culture, steeped in art, philosophy, and an unrelenting pursuit of beauty. At the heart of this empire stood Empress Lyria Valeth, a figure who commanded both awe and admiration from her people. Her presence radiated elegance, with shimmering silver skin that caught the light like liquid starlight, eyes that glowed soft violet, and hair cascading down her back in waves of iridescent hues. The humans, on the other hand, were newcomers to the galactic stage, ambitious yet clumsy, eager yet naive. Their first contact with the Zyrathians had been accidental, sparked by a malfunctioning probe veering off course into Zyrathian territory. Instead of hostility, the Zyrathians responded with curiosity, intrigued by these primitive beings who dared to reach beyond their cradle world. But diplomacy between two such vastly different species was no simple matter. Tensions simmered beneath the surface, fueled by misunderstandings and cultural differences that neither side fully understood. Enter Rylan Calloway, a soldier-turned-diplomat thrust into the role of humanity's representative during one of the most critical missions in history. Rylan wasn't chosen for his eloquence or charm. He was picked because he had survived countless battles, earning a reputation for resilience under pressure. He was solidly built, with weathered features marked by years of hardship, and carried himself with quiet determination. Unlike some of his peers, Rylan didn't harbor illusions about the grandeur of interstellar diplomacy. To him, this mission was just another battlefield, one where words replaced weapons, but the stakes remained life or death. Rylan's task was daunting: establish rapport with Empress Lyria Valeth herself, whose laughter could inspire joy across entire planets and whose displeasure could spark wars. The human delegation knew little about Zyrathian customs, relying heavily on fragmented translations provided by rudimentary AI systems. They hoped Rylan's resourcefulness and adaptability would bridge the gap where technology fell short. Little did anyone anticipate how deeply personal and unexpectedly humorous their interactions would become. As Rylan stepped onto the gleaming platform leading to the royal chamber, his boots clicked against the polished floor, echoing unnervingly in the cavernous hall. The air smelled faintly metallic, tinged with something floral he couldn't quite place. Ahead of him loomed towering archways adorned with intricate carvings that seemed alive, shifting subtly as though watching his every move. His stomach churned, not from fear exactly, but from the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. This wasn't just any diplomatic meeting. This was humanity's chance to prove itself worthy among the stars. When Rylan entered the chamber, all breath left his lungs. Empress Lyria sat upon a throne unlike anything he'd ever seen, crafted from what appeared to be living crystal that pulsed gently with inner light. She wore robes that shimmered like liquid moonlight, flowing around her in impossible patterns that seemed to ripple outward before folding back in on themselves. Her face was serene, almost ethereal, framed by hair that shifted colors depending on how the light hit it. For a moment, Rylan forgot why he was there, overwhelmed by the sheer magnificence of her presence. Summoning every ounce of courage, Rylan cleared his throat and began speaking in halting, broken Zyrathian. Your Highness, he stammered, mangling the pronunciation horribly. I am honored to stand before you. The word sounded foreign even to his own ears, awkward syllables tumbling out like stones dropped into water. A hush fell over the room as everyone, including Lyria, turned their attention to him. And then, much to his horror, she laughed. It wasn't cruel or mocking, but warm and melodic, filling the chamber with a sound that felt like sunlight breaking through clouds. Still, Rylan's cheeks burned red as he froze mid-sentence, unsure whether to continue or retreat in shame. Lyria tilted her head slightly, studying him with those luminous violet eyes. You are very funny, human, she said, switching effortlessly to flawless English. Her voice was smooth and musical, carrying a hint of amusement that only deepened Rylan's embarrassment. Rylan swallowed hard, trying to regain his composure. Forgive me, Your Majesty, he replied, stumbling over the formal address. I wanted to show respect by attempting your language. It was true, though now it felt foolish. He hadn't anticipated being laughed at, not outright, anyway. Lyria leaned forward slightly, resting her chin on one delicate hand. Respect is appreciated, yes, she said, her tone still lightly teasing. But perhaps next time, leave the poetry to my court bards. She gestured vaguely toward a group of elegantly robed figures standing nearby, who smiled indulgently at the exchange. One of them whispered something to another, and a ripple of quiet chuckles spread through the assembly. If possible, Ryland's face grew even redder. He clenched his fists briefly at his sides, willing himself not to react defensively. "I'll keep that in mind," he muttered, feeling utterly outclassed. To his surprise, Lyria's expression softened. "Do not mistake my laughter for mockery, Ryland Calloway," she said, surprising him by using his name without prompting. "Among my people, humor is a sign of connection, not disdain. You have already earned my curiosity, if not my amusement." Her words caught him off guard. Was she mocking him further, or genuinely trying to put him at ease? Before he could decide, she rose gracefully from her throne, her movements fluid and deliberate. She descended the steps separating them until she stood mere feet away, close enough for Ryland to see the faint glow emanating from her skin. Up close, she was even more breathtaking and intimidating than he'd imagined. "Now," she said, her smile widening ever so slightly, "let us begin again. In your tongue, if you prefer. I find it quaint." For the first time since entering the chamber, Ryland allowed himself a small, hesitant smile. Perhaps this wouldn't be as disastrous as he feared. Over the following days, Ryland found himself spending more time than expected in the opulent halls of the Zyrathian palace, navigating a labyrinth of customs and rituals that often left him bewildered. Each encounter with Empress Lyria brought new challenges, but also unexpected moments of levity. During one particularly tense negotiation session, Ryland attempted to explain Earth's concept of trade agreements using metaphors involving farming and harvest cycles. When he described surplus crops being stored for future use, Lyria raised an eyebrow and asked if humans truly stored food in underground pits like rodents. Unable to suppress a grin, Ryland admitted that while modern methods were far more sophisticated, the basic principle wasn't entirely wrong. Her resulting peals of laughter echoed through the chamber, leaving Ryland torn between mortification and delight. Yet, not all interactions were light-hearted. On several occasions, Ryland stumbled into social faux pas that nearly derailed the fragile alliance. Once, during a ceremonial banquet, he mistakenly complimented a dish by calling it simple yet satisfying, unaware that simplicity was considered an insult in Zyrathian culinary arts. The room fell silent, and Ryland felt the weight of dozens of glowing eyes fixed on him. Just as panic began to rise, Lyria smoothly interjected, praising the chef's ingenuity in creating flavors that transcended complexity. Her intervention saved the evening, though Ryland spent the rest of the meal acutely aware of every word he spoke. Despite these missteps, there were moments when Ryland's earnestness charmed even the most skeptical members of the Zyrathian court. During a demonstration of human technology, he enthusiastically explained the principles behind solar-powered satellites, using animated gestures and exaggerated expressions to compensate for the language barrier. When a young Zyrathian noble giggled at his antics, Ryland turned the situation into a playful game, challenging the noble to guess which part of the satellite was responsible for energy collection. By the end of the demonstration, the once stoic audience was smiling, and Lyria herself applauded softly, her violet eyes twinkling with approval. Through these exchanges, a tentative bond began to form between Ryland and Lyria. Though their backgrounds couldn't have been more different, they shared a mutual fascination with each other's worlds. Ryland marveled at the way Lyria seemed to embody the best qualities of her people, graceful yet sharp-witted, commanding yet compassionate. For her part, Lyria found herself intrigued by Ryland's resilience and adaptability, traits she admired despite their stark contrast to the refined elegance of her own court. Their conversations grew longer and more personal, ranging from discussions about leadership philosophies to debates over the merits of human music versus Zyrathian symphonies. One evening, after a particularly grueling day of negotiations, Lyria invited Ryland to join her in the palace gardens. The sprawling grounds were illuminated by bioluminescent plants that cast a soft, multicolored glow over winding paths and crystalline fountains. As they walked side by side, Lyria paused to pluck a glowing flower and handed it to him. "A token of gratitude," she said simply, "for enduring our eccentricities." Ryland accepted the flower, turning it over in his hands as he struggled to find the right words. "Eccentricities," he echoed, raising an eyebrow. I think bewildering might be closer to the mark. Lyria chuckled, the sound mingling with the gentle hum of the garden. Perhaps. But tell me, Ryland Calloway, do you not find us fascinating? He hesitated, then nodded slowly. Yes, he admitted. And frustrating. And beautiful. All at once. Her smile widened, and for a fleeting moment, Ryland thought he saw something softer in her gaze. But before he could dwell on it, she motioned for him to follow her deeper into the garden, where the air shimmered with the promise of untold secrets. As the weeks passed, Ryland became increasingly aware of the undercurrents swirling beneath the surface of the diplomatic mission. While Empress Lyria appeared genuinely interested in fostering peace, not everyone in her court shared her enthusiasm. Certain factions within the Zyrathian nobility viewed humanity's presence as a threat to their dominance, whispering of potential betrayals and hidden agendas. Ryland overheard snippets of these conversations during formal gatherings, his translator device picking up thinly veiled criticisms disguised as casual remarks. One lord, in particular, named Valen Ticharwass, made no effort to hide his disdain. With piercing golden eyes and a voice dripping with condescension, Valen openly questioned humanity's worthiness, accusing them of being reckless intruders unworthy of Zyrathian generosity. The tension reached a boiling point during a grand assembly held in the Hall of Echoes, a chamber designed to amplify sound and emotion. As representatives from both sides debated terms for resource sharing, Valen seized the opportunity to launch a verbal assault. Why should we trust these primitives? He demanded, gesturing dismissively at Ryland. They stumble through our language, bungle our traditions, and expect us to hand over technology centuries beyond their grasp. Is this truly diplomacy, or exploitation dressed in pretty words? Ryland clenched his jaw, resisting the urge to retaliate immediately. Beside him, the human delegation exchanged uneasy glances, unsure how to respond without escalating the conflict. Lyria, seated on her elevated dais, watched the scene unfold with an unreadable expression. When she finally spoke, her voice cut through the rising murmur like a blade. Lord Ticharwass, she said coolly, your concerns are noted. But remember, suspicion breeds division, and division weakens us all. Her words momentarily silenced the room, but Valen wasn't deterred. Leaning forward, he addressed her directly. My Empress, wisdom demands caution. These humans may smile and bow, but what lies beneath their masks? We cannot afford naivety. Before Lyria could reply, Ryland stepped forward, his posture rigid but controlled. With respect, Lord Ticharwass, he began, his voice steady despite the storm of emotions churning inside him. We're not asking for charity. Humanity has faced countless challenges and survived because we adapt, learn, and grow. If you doubt our sincerity, challenge us, test us. But don't dismiss us based on ignorance. The room erupted into murmurs, some approving, others disapproving. Valen sneered, clearly unimpressed. Bold words for someone so outmatched, he shot back. But bravery alone won't save your kind if war comes knocking. Lyria rose abruptly, her movements sharp and deliberate. Enough, she commanded, her tone brooking no argument. This assembly is adjourned. Both sides will reflect on today's discourse and return tomorrow prepared to move forward, not backward. As the crowd dispersed, Ryland caught Lyria's gaze. For a brief moment, he thought he saw a flicker of concern in her eyes, quickly masked by regal composure. Later that evening, as he wandered the dimly lit corridors of the palace, lost in thought, he heard soft footsteps behind him. Turning, he found Lyria approaching, her expression unusually grave. Valen's words carry weight among my people, she admitted quietly. If tensions escalate, it may jeopardize everything we've worked for. Ryland nodded grimly. I understand. But if war is inevitable, humanity won't back down. We fight for survival, and for hope. Lyria studied him intently, her violet eyes searching his face. Then, unexpectedly, she smiled, a small, enigmatic curve of her lips. Hope, you say? Perhaps that's something worth fighting for together. The revelation struck Ryland like a thunderclap during a routine inspection of the palace archives. Hidden within ancient scrolls detailing Xyrathian history was a passage that hinted at a long-forgotten prophecy. According to the text, an outsider from the stars would arrive during a time of great uncertainty, bringing both chaos and unity to the Xyrathian Empire. The description eerily matched the circumstances surrounding humanity's arrival, and, specifically, Ryland's presence in the royal court. The parallels were undeniable. The prophecy spoke of a warrior diplomat who would bridge divides, challenge entrenched beliefs, and ultimately alter the course of Xyrathian destiny. At first, Ryland dismissed the idea as mere coincidence. Prophecies were the stuff of legends, not practical considerations. Yet, the more he reflected on his interactions with Empress Lyria and the volatile dynamics of the Xyrathian court, the harder it became to ignore the possibility. Could his role here extend beyond mere diplomacy? Was he unwittingly fulfilling some cosmic design woven into the fabric of Xyrathian culture? These questions gnawed at him, especially late at night when the weight of his responsibilities pressed heavily upon his shoulders. Lyria, too, seemed troubled by the implications. When Ryland cautiously broached the subject with her during one of their private conversations, her reaction was telling. She listened intently, her violet eyes narrowing as she processed his words. "Prophecies are dangerous things," she said finally, her voice low and measured. "They can inspire hope, or sow discord. My ancestors placed great stock in omens and signs, but I have always believed in shaping our own futures rather than waiting for fate to dictate them." Despite her skepticism, Ryland noticed subtle changes in her behavior afterward. She began consulting with elder historians and spiritual advisors more frequently, seeking guidance on how to interpret the prophecy's relevance to their current situation. Meanwhile, whispers of the ancient text spread throughout the palace, fueling speculation among the nobility. Some saw Ryland as a harbinger of prosperity, while others viewed him as a catalyst for destruction. The divide deepened, threatening to fracture the fragile alliances Lyria had worked tirelessly to build. Caught in the crossfire of these conflicting interpretations, Ryland found himself grappling with doubts about his purpose. Was he merely a pawn in a larger game orchestrated by forces beyond his understanding? Or did he possess the agency to shape events according to his own values? The ambiguity weighed heavily on him, compounded by the knowledge that any misstep could unravel the delicate balance holding the mission, and potentially peace, intact. One evening, as Ryland paced the balcony overlooking the palace gardens, Lyria joined him silently, her presence grounding him in ways he hadn't realized he needed. "You seem burdened," she observed gently, her gaze fixed on the horizon. "Do you believe in destiny, Ryland Calloway?" He hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "I believe in choices," he replied, "and in doing what's right, even when it's hard. If destiny exists, maybe it's just another name for the paths we carve ourselves." Lyria turned to him, her expression thoughtful. "Then let us carve this path together," she said firmly. "Whatever the prophecy foretells, it will be our actions, not fate, that define its outcome." Their resolve strengthened by this shared conviction, Ryland and Lyria prepared to confront the mounting challenges ahead. Little did they know, the true test of their partnership, and the prophecy's fulfillment, was only beginning. In the shadowy recesses of the Xyrathian palace, unseen forces conspired against the fragile alliance between humans and Xyrathians. Unknown to Ryland and Empress Lyria, a clandestine faction within the court had begun orchestrating covert operations aimed at undermining the diplomatic efforts. Led by none other than Lord Valen HFY, this faction operated under the guise of traditionalist zeal, cloaking their malicious intents in rhetoric about preserving Xyrathian purity and supremacy. They believed that humanity's integration into their society would dilute their cultural essence and technological edge, viewing Ryland's presence as a direct affront to their heritage. The first signs of sabotage emerged subtly. Critical data streams between the human delegation and Xyrathian officials mysteriously faltered, causing delays and misunderstandings in negotiations. Equipment meant for joint scientific endeavors malfunctioned without clear reason, each incident meticulously engineered to appear as technical glitches. Ryland noticed these disruptions but initially attributed them to the inherent challenges of interstellar cooperation. However, as the frequency and severity of these incidents increased, his suspicions grew. During a routine security sweep of the palace communications hub, Ryland stumbled upon encrypted messages hinting at a larger conspiracy. With the help of a trusted Xyrathian technician who secretly opposed Valen's faction, Rylan deciphered fragments of communication that implicated high-ranking officials in acts of espionage and subversion. The depth of betrayal shocked him, yet it also clarified the underlying tensions that had plagued the diplomatic process. Armed with this knowledge, Rylan approached Lyria under the cover of darkness, choosing a secluded garden terrace where prying eyes and ears were less likely to intrude. Under the soft luminescence of bioluminescent flora, he laid bare the evidence of treachery brewing within her own ranks. Lyria listened intently, her expression darkening with each revelation. Her initial disbelief quickly gave way to a steely resolve as she grasped the magnitude of the threat posed not only to their diplomatic mission but to her sovereignty as Empress. "We must act swiftly and decisively," Lyria declared, her voice a blend of authority and urgency. "These traitors seek to destabilize everything we strive for. They underestimate the strength of unity between our peoples." Together, they devised a plan to expose the conspirators during the upcoming Galactic Concord Summit, a high-profile event attended by dignitaries from across the Empire. The summit presented an ideal stage to unveil the truth, leveraging the transparency of public discourse to dismantle the clandestine network. Rylan suggested planting false intelligence leaks suggesting a breakthrough in human-Zyrathian collaboration, hoping to lure the conspirators into revealing themselves through overt actions to halt the supposed progress. As preparations intensified, Rylan found himself reflecting on the irony of his position. Initially sent as a diplomat, he now navigated the perilous waters of interstellar intrigue, balancing diplomacy with espionage. The lines between ally and adversary blurred, demanding constant vigilance and adaptability. Despite the mounting pressure, a renewed sense of purpose fortified him. This mission had evolved into something greater than mere negotiation. It was about safeguarding the future of two civilizations teetering on the brink of either unprecedented cooperation or catastrophic conflict. With the Galactic Concord Summit looming on the horizon, the air in the Zyrathian palace buzzed with anticipation and tension. Rylan and Empress Lyria worked tirelessly, fine-tuning their strategy to expose the conspirators without inciting widespread panic or rebellion. Their plan hinged on precision timing and absolute secrecy, requiring them to navigate a labyrinth of political maneuvering and personal risk. Every step forward felt like walking a tightrope stretched over a chasm of uncertainty. Meanwhile, the human delegation grappled with its own internal struggles. Back on Earth, factions within the government questioned the wisdom of continuing the mission, citing escalating costs and the growing instability of the Zyrathian alliance. Some argued that humanity should sever ties and focus on self-sufficiency, while others advocated for doubling down on the diplomatic effort, believing that retreat would signal weakness. Caught in this tug-of-war, Rylan received conflicting directives from Earth's leaders, complicating his already delicate position. Amidst these challenges, Rylan's relationship with Lyria deepened, forged in the crucible of shared adversity. Late-night discussions transformed into moments of genuine connection, where titles and formalities faded, leaving two individuals bound by mutual respect and burgeoning trust. Lyria confided in Rylan about the burdens of leadership, the loneliness of wielding power, and her fears of failing her people. In turn, Rylan shared stories of his past, of battles fought and comrades lost, painting a picture of a man shaped by sacrifice and resilience. These intimate exchanges fortified their resolve, strengthening their commitment to seeing the mission through to its conclusion. Yet, as the summit drew nearer, the stakes escalated exponentially. Intelligence reports indicated that Valen Thryss and his allies planned a dramatic move during the event, possibly an assassination attempt or a public denunciation designed to shatter the fragile peace. The prospect loomed large, casting a shadow over their preparations. On the eve of the summit, Rylan stood once more in the palace gardens, the glowing flowers casting surreal patterns on the ground. Lyria joined him, her presence a comforting anchor in the storm of uncertainties. "Tomorrow will change everything," she said, her voice tinged with both apprehension and determination. "Yes," Rylan agreed, his gaze fixed on the horizon. "But whatever happens, we face it together." As dawn broke over the Zyrathian capital, bathing the city in radiant hues of gold and violet, the stage was set for a confrontation that would determine the fate of two civilizations. The outcome remained uncertain, but one thing was clear: the bonds formed in the crucible of crisis would endure, shaping the course of history in ways neither Rylan nor Lyria could yet imagine. The morning of the Galactic Concord Summit arrived with an electric charge in the air, as delegates from across the Zyrathian Empire and beyond gathered in the grand amphitheater. The venue was a marvel of engineering, a dome-shaped structure that shimmered like liquid crystal, its walls pulsing faintly with light that mirrored the emotions of those within. Ryland stood at the edge of the stage, his heart pounding as he surveyed the sea of faces below. Beside him, Empress Lyria exuded calm authority, her silver skin catching the ambient glow of the chamber. As dignitaries took their seats, Ryland noticed subtle signs of unrest among the conspirators. Lord Valen Thrys sat near the front row, flanked by several high-ranking officials who had been implicated in the covert communications. Their expressions were tense, eyes darting toward Lyria and Ryland with barely concealed hostility. It was clear they suspected something but couldn't yet determine what, or when, the trap would spring. The ceremony began with traditional Zyrathian rituals, including a hauntingly beautiful symphony performed by the court musicians. Then came speeches from various representatives extolling the virtues of unity and cooperation. When it was finally time for Empress Lyria to address the assembly, the room fell silent, every eye fixed on her regal form. "Esteemed guests," she began, her voice carrying effortlessly through the vast space, "today marks not only a celebration of our shared achievements but also a pivotal moment for the future of our empire, and perhaps all sentient life." She paused, letting her words sink in before continuing. "History teaches us that progress often requires courage, to embrace change, to trust one another, and to confront truths we might prefer to ignore." Ryland watched intently as Lyria signaled subtly to the technician hidden in the shadows. On cue, holographic displays flickered to life above the stage, projecting evidence of the conspiracy, intercepted messages, forged documents, and even recordings of clandestine meetings. Gasps rippled through the audience as the truth unfolded in stark detail. Valen shot to his feet, his golden eyes blazing with fury. "This is slander," he shouted, pointing an accusatory finger at Lyria. "A desperate ploy to distract from your failures." But Lyria remained unfazed. "Desperation," she countered smoothly, her tone laced with icy disdain. "No, Lord Thrys. This is justice. Your actions have endangered countless lives and threatened the stability of this alliance. You sought to divide us, but instead, you have revealed the strength of our unity." Before Valen could respond, security forces moved swiftly to apprehend him and his co-conspirators. Some resisted, sparking brief scuffles that were quickly quelled. As the traitors were led away, murmurs of shock and relief spread throughout the amphitheater. Many nobles who had harbored doubts about humanity's intentions now looked at Ryland with newfound respect. When order was restored, Lyria turned back to the crowd. "Let this day serve as a reminder that fear and division are tools of the weak. Together, we can forge a brighter path, one built on trust, innovation, and mutual respect." She gestured toward Ryland, inviting him to join her at the podium. Stepping forward, Ryland felt a surge of determination. "To my fellow humans," he said, addressing Earth's delegation seated nearby, "and to the people of Zyrathia, I say this: we may come from different worlds, speak different languages, and hold different beliefs. But we share something far greater, a desire to grow, to learn, and to thrive. Let us honor that connection by working together, not just today, but always." His words resonated deeply, earning applause that echoed through the chamber. For the first time since arriving on Zyrathia, Ryland sensed a genuine shift in sentiment. The barriers between species seemed less insurmountable, replaced by a fragile yet promising sense of camaraderie. After the summit concluded, the palace buzzed with activity as plans for collaborative projects were finalized. Scientists from both civilizations exchanged ideas, eager to combine their expertise in fields ranging from medicine to energy production. Artists organized joint exhibitions, blending human creativity with Zyrathian elegance. Even the culinary teams experimented with fusion dishes, much to Ryland's amusement, though he politely declined trying another simple dish after last time. Lyria invited Ryland to a private celebration in the gardens later that evening. The bioluminescent plants cast a soft, dreamlike glow over the winding paths, creating an atmosphere of serene beauty. As they walked side by side, Lyria stopped beneath a towering tree whose branches sparkled like stars. "You've done more than anyone could have asked," she said softly, her violet eyes reflecting gratitude and admiration. "Not just for me, but for both our peoples." Ryland smiled, feeling a warmth spread through him. "I didn't do it alone," he replied. "You believed in this mission, even when things looked hopeless. That made all the difference. They stood there for a moment, bathed in the gentle light of the garden. Then, almost instinctively, Rylan reached out and took Lyria's hand. To his surprise, she didn't pull away. Instead, she squeezed his fingers lightly, her smile radiant. "This isn't the end," she said, her voice filled with quiet promise. "It's only the beginning." In the weeks that followed, Rylan became a symbol of hope for both humans and Zyrathians alike. His name was spoken with reverence, not just for his bravery but for his unwavering belief in the possibility of peace. Back on Earth, news of the successful summit ignited celebrations worldwide, renewing faith in humanity's place among the stars. For Rylan and Lyria, their partnership evolved into something deeper, a bond forged in adversity and strengthened by shared dreams. Though their responsibilities kept them busy, they found moments to steal away together, exploring each other's worlds and learning from one another. Whether debating philosophy under the twin moons of Zyrathia or sharing stories around a campfire on Earth, they discovered joy in the simplest connections. Years later, when historians wrote of the era, they spoke of the Callaway Accord, a treaty named in Rylan's honor that marked the dawn of a new age of interstellar cooperation. But beyond the treaties and accolades lay a quieter legacy, proof that even in the vastness of the universe, two souls could bridge galaxies and find common ground. And so, under skies that stretched infinitely above them, Rylan and Lyria stood united, not as Empress and envoy, but as equals bound by love, trust, and the unshakable belief that no challenge was too great when faced together.